The answer to some of the criticism that is going on is twofold. Number one, I think people are paying too much attention to it. It is isolated. It is a legislator here and a legislator there. And people in Hollywood are sensitive to rumors, but they're not stupid. I mean, these people didn't get to their positions by being dumb. And they might be alarmed by it, and they'll make a phone call, and they'll say, hey, is this real or not? And I think as long as the consensus of the state and the consensus of the legislators, and certainly the consensus of the people, and I have no empirical data to prove this, except that my job is to sort of get a feel for what the people in Michigan are thinking. That's what I've been doing for 25 years as a columnist here. It is overwhelmingly, from a people's point of view, in favor of doing this. People see it. When Gran Torino came out, all of a sudden there was this high-profile film filmed in Michigan. The last words that came up on the screen as the cars were rolling along Lake St. Clair was "Made in Michigan." I was in a movie theater when that happened. Everybody stood up and started clapping. I mean, you know, that's the kind of civic pride that we have here. And so I think on almost every level there is support for this, overwhelming support. And most of the studio people, once they say, oh, okay, so it's a person here or a person there, well, we're used to that. We've seen this happen in other states. They're not panicking. That's the first thing that people should keep in mind. One voice, two voices does not overwhelm a state. Secondly, the people who are making that kind of noise and who keep talking about, well, let's put it up for another vote, or let's put it up for another vote. You know, you don't do that with legislation. You don't pass something in January and unpass it in March and then pass another version of it in June and then unpass it again in September. That's bad legislation across the board for anybody. This thing is growing, and it is not dangerous, even to the extent that the critics think it is, at this stage. It's too early. The amount of money that's actually being spent is nowhere near what the critics think it is. It's way under. First of all, when they read things like, oh, we've got 150 projects, no, you don't. If you learn anything about the movie business, everybody's got a movie, everybody's got a screenplay, everybody's got a deal, and the number of people who actually get to roll a camera and start are minuscule compared to the number of people who think they do. And the number of applications that come into the film office, the number that might even be approved, is far greater than the ones that will actually be shot. And so sometimes I've read some of these figures about how much money is being spent, and oh my gosh, we're already $200–300 million being spent in the first. No, it's not true. Because projects fall apart, because projects on paper don't translate into projects that are actually shot. And when you really look, and I do, you know, have some knowledge of this, when you really look at what was spent in the first year, it's much smaller than what a lot of people assumed it was going to be, although I believe that it's right on target with where it was supposed to be. Most of the films have been small budget films, so when they hear these disaster stories about a Benjamin Button movie in Louisiana costing, you know, $100 million out of the state coffers, they're not making those movies here yet. And until we're set up for that type of thing, they're probably not going to, and that's fine. Most of the movies that we're making are indie type of movies. They're smaller budget. If it gets up to a $30 or $40 million picture, it's a big deal. That's fine. And again, we're not paying those checks out for a year after they're filmed. In some cases, that's going to be 2 years from the time that you actually hear the rumor of it. So I would say to the people who are critics, relax. We're not writing checks for $400 million out of the state coffers by tomorrow. It's not going to be that much money. There will be enough time to spend 3 or 4 years watching this thing grow and then reevaluate it and say, okay, how are we doing here? Do we need to tweak it? Is there anything that you know, works better for us? But now is not the time to do it, not philosophically, not legislatively, not public relations-wise, and not budget-wise. It is not the panic that people think. I also think there's some misconceptions about where this money is coming from. You always say, oh, we're not going to be able to educate our kids. It doesn't come from the same fund that educates our kids. This comes from the general fund. So this is not going to be, oh, well, that's it. You know, we're going to make a movie and there's going to be a bunch of 7th grade dropouts as a result of it. That's just panic talk. And I wish that critics would be more responsible before they spread that type of thing. But, you know, I've spent a lot of my life in the media business, and I learned that you can't control what people say. You can just combat it with the truth and the facts. And I think that that's, you know, what we're trying to do here.